This is FE Peer Review. The date is March the 21st, 2024. Don't Sphere the Truth misspoke in his video about Beachy Head. We're going to be looking at a bit of a video by a channel called Don't Sphere the Truth. It seems to be a back and forth between him and Mick West, and it seems to be based on a long-distance observation on the south coast of England. We'll look at that. I'm going to make some suggestions in the second half of my video here as to what he could do to make more useful observations. But my main concern right now is to point out what shall I say, he seems to have misspoke in his video, and I want to call attention to that and suggest a correction. But first, a general thought that passes through my mind every time I see one of these videos, and this time I left it in the form of a comment on his. If the Earth is flat, when do we get to see the accurate map? It's been many, many years now that people have been saying, we see too far, gas pressure without a container, water seeks its own level. The most powerful and direct evidence would simply be a map that actually works, where you can pick any 2 points on the map, scale the distance between them, and find that this distance matches what we actually measure on Earth itself. Instead, we get horribly miraged, vague images of white blobs on the horizon and a bunch of assertions. This, by the way, that we see on the screen here, is the video that we are going to be looking at today, and I will play you a snippet from it at an appropriate point. And just in case I wasn't clear enough, I'll reiterate. All these discussions are a pointless waste of time, their true purpose, if flat earthers can't produce a map that works. Moving on, we have a screenshot here from Don't Sphere's video taken at 3:51. We see, I believe it's drone footage. It says real photograph. We see a bit of the coast here. There's a lighthouse. It's called Beltout Lighthouse. And there's some footpaths here. I have highlighted a couple of them in red. And then this screenshot taken at 4 minutes in, you'll see that Don't Sphere refers to Mr. West's video. The arc of that path isn't visible in the real photograph. This being the real photograph. He's saying the arc of that path isn't visible in the photograph. It is, and this is where he misspoke. This path here is the path in question, and this arc here is the arc we're seeing. It's a simple issue of the path having a slight curve in it and the terrain also curving. So when you look at it from the right angle, you do indeed see that curve. So Don't Sphere, you've got a misspeak right at the start of your video, which in my opinion undermines a great deal of what you had to say thereafter. Let's take a moment to look at a snippet from Don't Sphere's video.
Deception Part 1. For all intents and purposes, it looks like the Google Earth Pro image used in his video is a genuine, unmanipulated image. Who would even consider it had been manipulated? This is what I get on Google Earth Pro. No manipulation of the image. A real photograph. Here is the link. Please note the shape of the paths. Screenshot from Mr. West's video. The arc of that path isn't visible in the real photograph. This is what I get on Google Earth Pro with no manipulation. This is what Mr. West presents. Both images are at an eye altitude, of 148 meters. Please use Google Earth Pro and see which one you get.
I'm going to go now to Google Earth Pro, and we're going to reproduce both of these views to the point where we can see, by navigating continuously from one to the other, we can see that this path indeed does appear to have that curve in it from a certain angle. Don't Sphere brought up a number of other points. He said that Mick West used a view feature to accentuate the height of the terrain. It's possible he did. He may have had his reasons. I don't know. It's not relevant to the discussion I want to make here, which is simply that this statement by Don't Sphere is wrong. This is the location we're going to be going to on Google Earth. I'm going to zoom in from a distance. This is an overview. The Worthy Sailing Club, where the observation was made, is over here on the left, and looking across to the right, where we see Belltout Lighthouse and what I call White Cliff, where I've put a couple of pins. That's the area we're going to be looking at. Now, personally, I always find it rather difficult to navigate smoothly through Google Earth to get from one position to another. Do the best I can here. I may just, when I upload the video, I may make sections of it sped up, but I want to try to do things continuous when necessary to show from one view to another that I'm not making any breaks. So you can see that it's continuous. So here we are zooming in, and there's the Belltout Lighthouse, and these are the footpaths that we're seeing in that image. This is the one that rises. It's a combination of a curving path in plan view, and also it's rising up on the hill. So this is the one I want to try to navigate to two different positions so we can see that we can reproduce both those views we saw in the video. Let's go back and take a look at those again for a moment. So on one view, we've got Belltout Lighthouse, which is right here, or upper right, and the footpaths. And in the other view, we see the lighthouse and we see the footpath coming around with the arc in it. So I've done the best I can to recreate the view that Mick West appears to have used, and I've got it on the screen here in Google Earth. I also went ahead and pasted it. I did a screenshot of the main part and pasted it next to his image here. So we see that that path appears from this particular angle to have a quite strong curve in it. Go right there. So going back to Google Earth, I'm going to try to move from this position to a position that more resembles the other image. And that other image, remind ourselves, is this one here. Again, we see the same path and the lighthouse down at the end. Patience with me as I try to navigate through this. I'm going to keep my mouth shut and just navigate. And I may speed this part up if it takes me too long to get where I want to go, but I want to make it continuous so that you can see that we are looking at the same paths the whole way. This is the intersection of the paths where I've got the mouse right now. Well, that roughly gets us where we want to go. There's that same path still there. There's the intersection of the paths and the lighthouse at the upper right. All right, I'm inserting this as an edit. I'm going to try to do that one more time and just see if I can do it a little more smoothly. I'm pretty much back to where we started before. There's the curve in the path. Just found the last time I did it, it was a little bit jerky. So I'll try to do this a little more smoothly if I can. I think that was a little better. We see that this is indeed the same path, and that that's the intersection of the paths, and that the lighthouse is in the upper right. All right, continue. So you can see that this statement by Don't Sphere about please note the shape of this path. The arc of that path isn't visible in the real photograph. you can see that that is not correct. This path here and its curve is in fact the same path and curve that we see in this image here. And we went from one to the other continuously, navigating without a cut in Google Earth. So don't fear, that's the problem. You're claiming Mike West is doing all kinds of underhanded stuff, but your statement there is very simply wrong and easily demonstrable as wrong. So you'll want to clear that up in order for the rest of your video to be taken somewhat seriously, in my opinion. Now, getting back to the observation in question from Worthing Sailing Club out to these cliffs here, I think it's worth a brief look. In my opinion, it was done extremely poorly. Trying to divine any kind of information, geometric information, out of a photograph like this just seems to me like a fool's errand. You might as well be trying to figure out what you look like by looking in a bunch of funhouse mirrors. You know, if this is what you've got as far as your data and you're trying to figure out what you actually look like, you're probably wasting your time, and you might be better off just finding an undistorted mirror. So what I'm going to suggest is that the Worthing Sailing Club observation be done using good quality photographic equipment on days when you aren't seeing a lot of really distorting atmospheric effects. And when you do that, you might find that you actually get some useful data. So let's take a little look at how that could be done. Let's look at a few points that I think would make for much more useful observations. Pick a day when weather conditions are such as provide least atmospheric refraction. Warm afternoons on sunny days usually provide the best conditions because atmospheric temperature gradients have had time to smooth out. Also, surface water temperatures have had time to approach air temperatures. In the case of Worthing, you're looking east toward Beachy Head, so having the sun behind you is best. Also, pick days when humidity is low to avoid haze. A light breeze can be helpful in clearing the air of particulates or excessive water vapor. It looks like the next week or so is not going to be great conditions. Use good equipment and know how to use your equipment. For Christ's sake, use a tripod. If you are going to use a Nikon P900 or P1000, use it in manual mode. Focus it properly. Use correct exposure settings. A bit of video can be useful for presentation purposes, but make sure to take still images at the highest resolution available for doing your actual analysis. There's plenty of free tutorial information online. Document what you are doing: time of observation, weather conditions, location of station point, location of target, distance between the station point and target, elevations of station point and target, accounting for the height of the camera above the ground. Also, I didn't mention here, but if you're looking out over water, tidal area, if there's large differences in the tides, you're going to want to make a note of whether it's low tide, high tide, etc. If you aren't at least as careful in doing your work as normal professionals are in doing theirs, why should anyone take you seriously? Choose your station point thoughtfully. Pick a location where you can take multiple observations at different elevations. Quite a while back, I did a video called Ship on the Horizon, Part 1. I will put a link to that in the description. I want to share with you a few images from that video. I didn't take these images, and in fact it's a video, not still images, but I used them with the permission of the person who took them. He was on vacation in, I believe it was Jamaica, and he was staying at a beach on the waterfront there. And what you're seeing is in front of us is a 5-story building that he was staying in, and that building wraps around to the left and behind us. Right behind us is a kind of little tower that is an elevator that serves all 5 levels. Now, he happened by luck to be standing on this beach looking out, and he saw a ship on the horizon. So he got his camera into video mode, and he, starting at the beach there, he zoomed in on the horizon and got a good view of the ship. And then he went continuously, without a break in the video, over to the elevator and went up to the 5th level, but stopping along the way and taking imagery of that ship as he went from level to level. So here are a few pictures as he went up the elevator. That was starting at the beach. Notice that we can begin to see this little bit back here behind the main bulk of the ship. And now we can see more of it here. And then finally we can see even more down to this red line. Once he was up there, he went back down to the beach again, and we got to watch the ship sink. Anyway, these are an interesting set of photos, stills from the video. Now, I would recommend, the video is useful, but you'll get better quality imagery if you do still photos. So I would recommend generally doing still photos rather than video. I am adding this as a little edit. What we see here on Google Earth is the Worthing Sailing Club, where that observation was made. And I wanted to show that there's probably a better spot to do it just down the road. But first I'm going to point out, next to the sailing club, there's this building here, which I believe is a private apartment building. It seems to be 2 stories over a basement, and then there's a smaller 3rd story up above. If it were possible to get permission to go in there and up onto the roof or onto these 2nd story decks, that would be great. But since it appears to be private apartments, I'm assuming that's not possible. And there are probably some better spots just down the road. So if we go down the road a little bit here towards the east, there's a row of new high-rises right along here. And perhaps it would be possible to get permission to go into one of those. Let's take a look from Street View. We have a nice 8-story building here. It looks like it's got a 9th-story penthouse. Might be possible to get permission to go up onto that penthouse level. We're just across the street from the beach, so we'll have a clear view. One could easily set up the camera right at the water line, get a good observation from very close to the water, and then move up to this terrace here. You'd be up another 3 meters or so. And then for a second observation, and then you could get an observation from up high up here, and that would be, I'll go down here so you can see it better, up from up here. That would be a great set of observations. It would be very interesting to see how the view of Beachy Head changes as the station point elevation changes. Beachy Head's out here somewhere. Let's go down the road a little bit. I think there might be another spot down here that's got some potential. Any of these buildings, if you could get into any of them, that would be great. So I guess my point is that a little bit of knowing the neighborhood, you might be able to come up with a better, oh yeah, look at that. Wow, if you could get up there, that'd be great. Anyway, you might be able to find some better spots for doing future observations right close by, conveniently close by. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 stories, 3 meters per floor approximately. So that gets you 30 meters up above the street. And then you're probably at the street level, you're probably another 3 meters, maybe even 4 above the water's edge. Yeah, there's some real potential there for some interesting observations. I'd say give it a try. Moving on, repeat your observations on 3 or 4 different days. This helps to identify if excessive atmospheric conditions are affecting your work. It is common for scientists to gather a large mass of data points, and then if a few fall far outside otherwise closely spaced data, these outliers are discarded. This is a way of catching errors. The equipment can be at fault. Human error can enter, for example, by accidentally transposing 2 numbers in a large number set. It is a good idea to try to identify the cause of that outlier. It may alert you to problems in data collection, but it's far more likely to be a mistake than to be some earth-shattering truth that will destroy everything we think we know about reality. And then you've collected all your data and it's time to analyze it. And yes, atmospheric refraction is a fact. Account for it. If you reject that fact, don't just ignore it. You'll be opening yourself to a very easy critique. Instead, state that you're rejecting it and give your reasons why. Do you have valid reasons for rejecting generations of science behind the current knowledge on atmospheric refraction effects? If so, many scientific, industrial, and military bodies will be very interested in your work. Here's a recent scientific paper published on MDPI that analyzes refraction on radar, air-to-air radar. I'm going to read you just a little bit of it. I'll put a link in the description. Recent dramatic advances in radar systems have resulted in the extensive use of a variety of long-range airborne radars. Such radars are generally required to exhibit extreme high performance in order to accurately detect long-range targets. However, regardless of the radar performance, the target detection probability can be decreased by various factors, for example, external noise, clutter, atmospheric gas attenuation, polarization mismatches, multipath interference, and the refractive index. In particular, the gradient of atmospheric refractive indices along the altitude, usually changed by temperature and atmospheric pressure and dew point temperature, causes the refraction of the wave propagation that is sub, super, normal, and duct refraction. So there it is right at the top of their paper. You got to pay attention to the atmospheric refraction index. And there's this nice little diagram that shows what they just described. So there's one for you. Now let's move on. If you have questions about that whole atmospheric refraction issue, I have a few videos on my channel that discuss it. And I want to bring your attention in particular to the second one on this list here, atmospheric refraction and long distance observations, final statement. Particularly in the description of this video, I've provided links to a dozen resources. They are scientific papers by industry organizations such as the telecommunications industry. There are also instruction manuals from organizations like the US Navy and all of these dozen documents describe how refraction works and how it needs to be accounted for in their various fields of research. So I will put a link to that video in the description as well. I guess that's all there is to say today. You know, if you're going to be playing this game, try to do a good job. Do your work as best you can. Make sure to dot your I's and cross your T's. Don't cross your I's and dot your T's. That's not going to help. And if you don't get the results you want, maybe it's because what you want isn't what you're going to get. Reality is what it is. It's our job to try to figure it out. That's all for today. Have a nice day. This is FE Peer Review.